going here. You are at a meeting of the Wenham Zoning Board of Appeals. Just by way of disclosure, this meeting is being videotaped and recorded, so if you participate, your likeness and voice will be memorialized. We have 3 matters on the agenda this evening, and I'm going to propose we take them a little bit out of order and start with our continued hearing, in large part because we have counsel here who's billing by the hour and I'd like to minimize that tab if we could. That matter is the 62 Maple Street 40B application that has been requested to be revised from what was previously approved by this board in recognition of a settlement of litigation by certain abutters of the property. Maybe we could start with Mr. DeFranza, if you can kind of update us where we are, and we can take it from there.
Nice to see everybody. I'm wearing my Gandhi socks, although they can't see that on television. I thought I'd point that out. It's very peaceable. Update here, I think we gave you all in advance some updated plan sets as you asked for last time. Sorry, there's a little trip hazard here. Which included some changes to the design based on the feedback from last time, all of which was reflected in the settlement agreement. Most of that, if you recall, had to do with height of the building shape, but you had asked last time for some differences on that. So you have a memo, I believe, in your packet there from the engineer, and a memo from the architect detailing some of the changes, of which there are not very many, but that gave you some more detail. There was some discussion, is it okay if I, with the council for the abutters and some of the groups in between, since you have that document, where there were some further requests specifically for the removal of a few more parking spaces that were between the building and one of the adjacent parcels. So I actually have an updated sheet here for you if you want to see that. That was a request that was made, along with a movement of the loading area, both of which we agreed to and made. So on your set, the driveway was moved a little bit, the loading area, which I can point out for you if you be interested in that. And on this set I have here for you, we also removed 6 more parking spaces that were closer to them at their request. The other things that you have in your packet are detailed around where the fire access goes, where the drainage is, some different grading, the building shape, the distance from the abutters. And that was mostly it. So I'm happy to take questions you have about it, but I think the memos laid it out in pretty good detail.
Thank you.
And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you want this set, which shows the removal of the parking spaces that we're proposing.
Yes, please.
That'd be interesting. And council had a copy of it. One of those.
Great.
One of these, I can show you that. One for you. You'll have to share with council, but if you want one that's going to cost you. Can I show you these?
Yes, please.
So you notice in the upper corner, on this side, this was requested, this is the distance and footage from the Berthioms, all back here to the building, which is 333 feet. That was what the settlement was. So we added that to the section so you can see that. And the parking removal was right here. So we pulled 6 parking spaces out of this, which I actually think is fine because there was an abundance. We had not reduced the parking spaces by a ratio of reduced units. So it's still, I believe the number's still 60. But we took 6 out of here, which allowed us, part of the settlement agreement was to try to preserve as many of the trees in this buffer between this lot line, which is Paul and Aaron's lot line here. So we moved these parking spaces in order to enhance our ability to preserve the tree line between them and the site. And we moved this actually you had in the original. We moved this loading area, which was back here. We moved it with the building up at their request. So those are the changes since what you have in your hand, and that was in response to their request. I'm sure they speak for themselves.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So we moved 6 parking spaces from right here.
Where's the loading area?
The loading area is here.
Didn't you have originally
We already got those. These 6 that were a request from the Berthioms.
And what's changed with the loading area from the previous plans?
The previous plan that you had here that came the other day, nothing, but in the original submission, we have not moved that.
Okay. Since our last meeting, I've gone back through the original decision and tried to educate myself again on what we did back then. I have a couple of questions, and then I'll open it up to my fellow board
Sure.
members who may also have some questions. Have you obtained site control over that extra parcel of land we now need to make it a T as opposed to an L? Or the movement of the building?
Yeah, Mr. Burnett had given us, I think it was 4/10 of an acre and an amendment on the option agreement, and so that we have obtained site control of that.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then, actually, let me turn it over to you guys if you have any questions, and then I have one other avenue I want to pursue with this.
Sure. One of the conditions in the original decision, and forgive me one second while I look it up here,
Sure.
had to do with the split of the units that would be available to people making under 60% versus 30%. And as we reduce from 60 to 45, I'm curious what that split would be, because we'll need to amend the original decision.
Yeah, that's actually a great question and a little bit of a sensitive spot for me personally. So, so the technical answer is that originally we were gonna, of the 60, there were gonna be 16 for people below 30% of median income, and that was one of the things we wanted to pursue, because that's sort of in the sweet spot of our missional intent. So particularly for seniors that are on Social Security, which is what we do in some of our other buildings, that's what we were after. As a technical matter, this is now only 8, because the way that you finance that, the previous version had 2 phases, so we were going to build it in 2 chunks. The way that you finance it with the state, you can only get so many of those 30% median slots per project, and so in a single project, you can only get 8. So I may still pull a rabbit out of my hat on that and find a way to get them to give us a few more, but for purposes of this, I would say now,
This is of our amending
correct, 8,
this decision.
8 out of 45.
8 out of 45.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so 37 at 60%, 8 out of 30.
Got it.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I could tell you why that is if you're really bored, but yes.
No, thanks. Dana, did you have any questions?
I didn't. I went through everything, and I have no questions.
So a question not necessarily to you, but
Sure.
to counsel for the plaintiffs. Have you gone through this? Are you satisfied that the revised plans meet the requirements of the settlement agreement, or is there anything that is still outstanding as far as you're concerned?
This is Caitlin Baptista of Hill Law for the plaintiffs. We've gone through this with our engineer, and we are satisfied at this point that it does meet our settlement agreement terms.
So we've not discussed this since we last left, as we're not allowed to. So I'm raising this fresh with my fellow board members. There are certain aspects of the changes here that I'm not comfortable as a layperson saying this is fine, versus having our peer review consultant step back in for a very limited scope review. For instance, there have been some grading revisions. I can't, as a layperson, say those are fine, they don't have any impact. We've shifted the location of the loading drive, probably doesn't have an impact, but I can't say whether it does or not. We've rotated the proposed septic tanks. I don't know if that has an impact, but someone smarter than me should take a look at it. And then we've added additional subsurface drainage to account for the larger footprint of the system of the building. And I can't, as a layperson, say that's sufficient or it's not sufficient, it's going to work. So what I would propose to my fellow board members is that we re-engage our peer review consultant for the limited purpose of looking at this and just kind of vetting it with their eyes. We as a board have, I think, acquitted ourselves of our abilities and duties to review what was approved before, what's before us now, and it occurs to me we may just need some technical expertise to just kind of close that final loop, given that this is a very important project and want to make sure we do it and we do it right.
You mean just sort of a sign off? Would we
Sign
get that in
off,
the form of a memorandum?
Flag any issues that they see that we haven't, with their more educated eye, and then set this on a very short return, and absent them coming back with problems we haven't seen, keep this thing moving forward. So in that regard, I guess the protocol here is to ask you, as the applicant, to agree to fund that review. And we can do that a couple of ways. One is Margaret can call them tomorrow and get an estimate, and if you'll agree to fund whatever that is, I think we can proceed tonight or continue things tonight. Otherwise, we may have to get a number for you, set another hearing, come back and have you agree to that number and then push it out even further.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to find out what that number is. I can tell you we're highly reluctant to spend any more money on this project.
Understood.
So I understand your position, and you probably understand mine.
I do.
So.
I don't envision it's going to be a huge number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's a modest number, I don't think we're going to cut our nose off to spite our face. But on principle, I think I would not agree to it unless I knew what it was.
Okay, and that's fine. So I think the path forward here is we'll get that number, set this on a short return.
Sure.
If you come back and agree to that number or not, and then we'll get that review done, and then we'll set it out further for whatever the next step is.
Okay, so I'll contact Horsley Witten. They're the peer reviewer for the original project, so we can continue on with them. We do have approximately $750 in the peer review account from the last
Feel free.
review. Huh?
Feel free.
Yeah. And I can contact them tomorrow, and hopefully get an estimate for the second phase of the review. Would you agree to that, or do you need to come back to another meeting to
No.
make that agreement?
We could even do a not to exceed if you'd like, if that would shorten it up for meeting purposes.
What?
How about a
Not to
not to
exceed.
exceed 5,000?
Fine.
Does that give us enough wiggle room?
Mm-hmm.
You think we'll be
I
comfortable?
think it should.
And then you don't need the extra meeting for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'll take care of that tomorrow and contact the applicant and let them know the amount. If it's not greater than $5,000, we'll proceed.
Sure.
You'll get us a check and then we'll proceed.
Sure. I guess I'd even, as a technical matter, I'd say that's probably 5,750 because you already have 750 from before. Is that right?
We do about 750. Okay.
So 5,000 not to exceed new 5,000.
Understood.
5,000 in addition to what we have.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. I'll take care of that.
Adam, was there anything that you were anticipating addressing while you're here?
No, the only thing that I think I had mentioned to you, Mr. Chairman, before tonight is obviously the additional submittals you've received since the last session of the public hearing are substantial and better. We've got engineered drawings, we've got elevations and architecturals and perspectives, so that's all very helpful. And then we have 2 memoranda from the engineer and from the architect that describe in a bulleted fashion the changes, so that's all very good. I think that the one additional thing you need, and I don't know that you need it for tomorrow, but I think the sooner that we get it from the applicant, it can be included in the package that gets sent along to your peer review consultant, is
Salud.
an identification of any changes to the waiver list. So I look back at the original comprehensive permit, and the waiver list was, at least compared to some projects, not substantial. It's a couple of pages long. But the way that waiver lists are typically crafted, it's not just a waiver from a particular provision. For example, if you've got a 50-foot front yard setback, it wouldn't just say to waive that provision. It would say to waive it so as to allow for a setback of X. And where the building has shifted and the project has changed somewhat, I just want to be sure that every one of those waivers is consistent with the new project. At first glance, I can at least identify 2 that are going to change, just based upon the changes made to the plan. So if the applicant can
that's fair.
provide an updated list, then you can review that and be prepared to modify it in as much as you decide to grant the application to modify the permit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's actually very reasonable.
So at this point, we should pick a date and continue the hearing.
And I'll submit the copy of this one with the parking places changed. I don't believe that I sent it to Margaret yet. So for your file, I'll send it digital. This is the only one here. Yes.
I'll send it electronically.
Yes.
Okay.
If I could mention one other thing, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So just a reminder, and I defer to your discretion, but this is a public hearing, so you're not obligated to allow public comment at every session of the public hearing.
But we should.
I think you allowed it at the last session, and I would suggest that if you don't allow it tonight, you should certainly allow it at the next session, but it might not be a bad idea to allow comment tonight if there is any.
All right, no, thank you, that's a great point. So just so we have things ordered, thank you, Mr. DeFranco.
Sure.
Appreciate your
Yeah, very welcome.
supplementation. If we could take comments in favor of the project first, if any. Any comments in opposition to the revised application? Anybody neutral, just want to talk? Okay,
Everyone's here for something else.
all right. So then, if we could pick a date. Mark, I don't know if you have some.
Yeah, did you say the 19th was not good for you?
I can't on the 19th. I can do it on the 12th or on the 26th, which would be either of the preceding or the following Thursdays.
Okay. It's
12th or 26th works for me.
26th?
Either 12th or 26th.
Evan, how's the
12th is
26th?
better for me.
All right, let's do 12.
Does the
He
12th
can't
give us
be.
enough time? Oh,
I can be here on the 12th.
yeah, the 19th.
Oh, the 12th. Actually, I have planning board the 12th. They're meeting here on the 12th,
Okay.
so that makes it
So-
hard.
Push it back to,
We could do, if you wanna do a Wednesday night,
Sure,
that's fine
yeah.
too.
I can do
For a
the,
Wednesday,
I can do the 18th.
Wanna do the 18th?
Yep, sure.
Evan, how's that for you?
Is there no way we could do the 11th? It's just my I got two small kids and my wife's out of town that night. She's gonna be in New Orleans.
You wanna move it up even further to the 11th? I'm just,
if we
my
could.
only concern is getting peer review
Right.
back by then.
Right, that,
Cause I have to have the funds in
Right.
place before I can, have them, well, I can have them start to do up to $750 worth of review. Do you think that's enough
20
time?
25th.
Yeah, the 25th or 26th? You think a week will make a big difference?
26th works.
Probably okay for me.
Yeah. Does that work for you, Jeremy?
that works.
26th?
Yep.
And that works for you too?
It does.
Okay.
So
So March
26th.
26th?
All right, Mr. DeFranco, does 26th work for you
March?
of March?
March.
All right, then I would ask for a motion to continue this hearing till March 26th at 7:30 PM, at which time we will resume consideration of the amended petition.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. DeFranco.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
All right, we'll wait just a minute for folks to clear out who are not going to join us for the rest of the agenda. Not seeing many. Next up, we have hearing on 19 Hull Street on a petition of Arthur Ngemi for a special permit pursuant to Wenham zoning bylaw 4.3.2, seeking permission to add an accessory apartment. Margaret, maybe we could start with reading the legal notice.
The Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Wenham, Massachusetts will hold a public hearing in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 11, and the Town of Wenham zoning bylaw on Thursday, February 20th, 2020, at 7:30 PM at the Wenham Town Hall, 138 Main Street, Wenham, Mass. This hearing will be on the petition of Arthur Ngemi for a special permit pursuant to Wenham zoning bylaw, Section 4.3.2, special permit for accessory apartment, and Section 13.4, special permits to renovate the existing single-family home to create an accessory apartment at 19 Hull Street, map 44, lot 19, Anthony Fahary, Wenham Board of Appeals, for publication in the Chronicle and Transcript Thursday, January 30th, 2020, and Thursday, February 6th, 2020.
Thank you. Mr. Ngemi, would you like to describe to us what it is you're asking to do?
Okay, well, I have been living at 19 Hull Street since 2004, and I raised 4 children there. My wife, Rosemarie, is with me tonight. The 4 children I spoke of, they're all adults now and they're gone, so we are living in a 5,500 square foot house that's way too big for us. And the way the house is constructed, there's really nothing I have to do. There's already like a separate entrance, separate bathroom, separate everything. It's just the way they seem to have built the house. There's the main house where we live in, and then they put this addition on, which is nicely fitted right into our house. And so, speaking with the building inspector, really the only thing we have to do is put a second means of egress, which would be punching out a door to the back porch. So that's there's no major construction. It's not going to alter any kind of appearance of the building. It won't affect environmental at all. We have 5 bedrooms, five bathrooms. This is like just way too much. So at this point in our lives, we've come to crossroads of what to do here. So either we're going to sell the property, or we're going to try and lease it. We're keeping our options open. We'd like the support of the board. See if you would support us with this, and that's basically it. If you have any specific questions, I think you can refer to any paperwork that we sent in with the building inspector. The package that kind of shows what we want to do, and I think addresses all the questions.
You'd be residing in the bigger part of the house?
Yes. Yep.
The intent? And do you have a tenant lined up for the
No.
accessory apartment yet?
No.
All right, is it going to be a family member, or do you know, or is it going to be a third party?
Probably a third party, but we're not looking to. We're looking ideally a professional. 1 or 2 folks that would take up the space.
Evan?
I mean, it could be a family member. I mean, I haven't pursued it. I don't know
I got you.
what's out there,
No, it seems pretty straightforward to me. I think the one thing that we typically do when issuing the special permit is just ask that no short-term leases be made.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So we usually put a 6-month minimum on leases.
Yeah. My minimum would be a year, because I don't want to deal with that, back and forth of trying to get new tenants. I'm not interested in anything short-term. So I'm with you with that.
That's really the main thing, because that cuts out the Airbnb, and then
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not going in business here.
you're below the 35% threshold and below
Right.
1,000 square feet. So I mean, other than that, it's
Yeah.
sort of a
Parking's no issue.
No.
Yeah. You have the septic
Yep.
capacity. So,
Do we have any comments in favor? Would you mind just standing up and give your name to the record?
Howard Squires.
Oh, the other applicant.
Me and my wife and my daughter.
Got it. All right. Do we have any questions or comments in opposition to the application?
I might add that I did get signatures from all my abutters. They're in support of it.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, we saw that. All right. I've gone through the application, the bylaw, and it seems to me it fits check all the boxes. Nothing about this raises any concerns to me, but let me open up for discussion to my board.
Yeah, the other stipulation you're aware that we'll put on it is that it has to be, one of the units must be owner occupied
right.
for sure.
at all times.
Yep.
And if that ever changes, then
Of course.
the permit needs to.
No, I understood that from the beginning.
All right. Then I guess, absent anything further from Margaret?
I think the board has the comments from all of the departments, and there were no issues or concerns. The Board of Health said as long as there are no additional bedrooms being added, Board of Health has no comments. Water Department has no comments. This is on Beverly Water, so. And Fire just reminded that they have to have all current smoke detectors and CO detectors, meaning nothing expired on inspection. And no concerns from the Police Department.
Okay. Then I would ask for a motion to approve the application, subject to a 6-month minimum term for leases, and subject to, what's our other typical one?
Owner occupied?
Owner occupied,
Owner occupied is.
which I
one
think is
condition.
part of the,
Yep.
Something else
Part of the
that we
bylaw,
need
yeah.
to call out with this one.
I think that's it.
Right.
So I would ask for that motion.
So moved.
But one minute, I just wonder if we should consider parking, if there's any reason for us to consider parking. I noticed that you had mentioned you have room for like 12 cars or
Right.
something, and I don't know if that's.
At
even
least,
within our-
yeah.
If that's even within our purview here.
Yeah.
I think
it's
as long as
in-
it has more than 3.
Right. It's required to have 3 at minimum.
Right.
And I don't see anything in here that would require us, to call that out specifically.
And I've got a 4-car garage plus parking for 12 around, so that should meet the minimum.
Okay.
I really
Just wanted to make
got a
sure
lot of
we-
space
just wanna
here if
make sure
anyone's
we
interested, you know?
Kind of called it out for the record.
Do we have a second of the motion?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
All right, so we will work up a decision in the next week or two.
Yeah, and then we'll need your signatures on it. If you come in, you can sign it if you come in.
All right, and then there'll be an appeal period, as it ripens. So we'll get that out as soon as we can.
Thank you very much. You all a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is an application by Mr. Squires, also seeking permission to build an accessory apartment as part of a new construction over on Topsfield Road. And Margaret, if you could read the legal notice.
The Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Wenham, Massachusetts will hold a public hearing in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 11, and the Town of Wenham zoning bylaw on Thursday, February 20th, 2020, at 7:30 p.m. at the Wenham Town Hall, 138 Main Street, Wenham, Mass. This hearing will be on the petition of Howard Squires for a special permit pursuant to Wenham zoning bylaw, Section 4.3.2, special permit for accessory apartments, Section 4.1, private garage for more than 3 motor vehicles, and Section 13.4, special permits to demolish the existing single-family home to create a new single-family home with an accessory apartment and 2 two-car garages at 128 Topsfield Road, Assessors Map 16, Lot 97. Anthony Bahari, Wenham Board of Appeals, for publication in the Chronicle and Transcript Thursday, February 6, 2020, and Thursday, February 13, 2020.
Thank you. We have someone here on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, Bob Griffin of Griffin Engineering. Also with Mr. and Mrs. Squires tonight is their architect, Joe Luna of Luna Design. Mr. Squires is a very experienced home builder on the North Shore. He's built homes throughout his career in many towns around here. And Mr. Luna, as you know, is an experienced designer of residential and multifamily structures. And Mr. Luna would be happy to address any questions you have about the house design. As their civil engineer, I can tell you that we've surveyed the property and looked at the topography and the Board of Health issues here, and I'll describe those sort of briefly to you. The Squires own this parcel of land, which is around 41,000 square feet in size. It has more than the required frontage in the R1 district. It has about 270 feet of frontage. I think where 170 is required. As you can see, there's a former location of a proposed house here. This was a 4-bedroom house, and there was an accessory structure behind the house here. And a couple of years ago, there was a large barn in the backyard that burned down. The Squires proposed to basically remove all of the, in fact, the demolition work has occurred here, so they're proposing at this point to construct the building that is indicated in the red outline here. It's going to be a 4-bedroom primary residence with a 1-bedroom in-law apartment. Mr. and Mrs. Squires and their daughter, Kimberly, took possession of the property in December, and so they're joint owners of the property. The request that we have in front of you tonight is, one is for the in-law apartment, and this is going to be in about a 996 square foot portion of the first floor. As indicated on the architectural plans, they've got, a bedroom, a laundry, a kitchen, living room, all in this 996 square feet area, and they have a 2-car garage connected to it at the same level. Mr. and Mrs. Squires both drive. They need to have the 2 cars, and so that's why we have the 2-car garage on this side. Their daughter Kimberly and her children will occupy the primary portion of the residence on the west side of the property here. They also need 2 cars, and so that's how we ended up with 2 two-car garages here. The zoning requirements are that if we have more than 3-car garage, that we need to have a special permit, and that's in section 4.1 of your ordinance. The in-law apartment, similar to the previous application, is section 4.3.2.1. And obviously, since the Squires own the property and their daughter owns the property as well, they'll satisfy the requirements that it be owner occupied. The previous structure on the property had a failing Title V system, so we've done a number of test pits throughout the property, and I'm going to just show you briefly the Title V design. This plan has been approved by the Board of Health, but basically the same house footprint here with a septic tank coming out here to a Presby leaching system here. Now, we've conducted test pits throughout the property trying to find the best location for soils for the septic system. We found an area out here which perked at a rate of 30 minutes per inch, so somewhat slow area, but this will satisfy as their future reserve area. Their prime area is going to be located right here at a rate of about 12 minutes per inch. The Squires have also adopted an innovative septic technology that sort of reduces the size of the leaching area as compared to what would normally be required. But they're constrained soil-wise on the property. This is downhill of the house, which of course is where you want your septic system so it can flow by gravity. But their leaching system had to be 12 feet away from the property line here and about 12 feet from the back line as well. And that necessitated, in combination with a shallow groundwater table in this area, the need to bring in some fill, and the fill is going to be supported by a proposed retaining wall on this side and this side. We had provided, as part of our Board of Health submittal, a design of a retaining wall. So it's a stone wall. Let me get to a little detail here. Here's our stone wall design. It has a maximum exposure of 5 feet. I think most of it is about 3 to 4 feet in height, and that's going to be located here on the rear line and the side line here and here, again, primarily for the purpose of putting the leaching field at that location. Other locations of the lot were constrained by ledge or shallow groundwater or poor soil conditions and otherwise. We also are going to use this retaining wall in this back corner to push water to a rain garden that's going to be located out here by Topsfield Road. And the purpose of the rainwater is to collect roof runoff and infiltrate it into the ground. The rain garden includes a 2-foot thick layer of crushed stone underneath it and some plants as required by the Massachusetts Stormwater Guidelines. The plants help uptake water and provide a nice appearance as you're driving along Topsfield Road. The site entrance is going to be basically the same as occurred for the previous 4-bedroom house here. There was a driveway that came in at this location, a driveway that came in at this location. The Squires are going to loop this driveway together here to create sort of this loop and a walkway up to the front door. But both Mr. and Mrs. Squires are going to be able to drive to their garage out back here, and their daughter and their children will be able to drive to the garage over on this side. So there's ample room off-street for not only for the 4 cars inside the garage, but for some guest parking as well, so there'll be no impact on parking on Topsfield Road. We've also included along the edges of the driveway some infiltration strips. The purpose of these infiltration strips is to catch runoff from the driveway and get it into the ground. And it's about, we've got 100 feet of infiltration strip on this side and about 80 feet on this side. So the combination of the rain garden and the infiltration strips along the driveway put a lot of water into the ground. Whatever water doesn't go into the ground, these locations will go, as it has in the past, drain out to catch basins in Topsfield Road. You can see there's a catch basin here, and there's a catch basin here. And as the road slopes down, there's additional catch basins on Topsfield Road as well. So so the wall allows us to push water away from our neighbors. The infiltration strips picks up water from the driveway, and the rain garden allows us to put a lot of water into the ground as well, so that we're going to have no impact on stormwater issues for any neighboring properties as a result of this design. So I think that sort of summarizes our key points of the project. I'd be happy to address any questions at this time.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I got an email this afternoon
Yep.
with revised plans as
Right.
well as a narrative regarding the need for a
Yep.
variance. When it was submitted, we didn't realize that they would need a variance for the retaining wall. So that's something that the board would need to discuss as far as hardship goes. And you revised it, Bob, to not have a retaining wall on the left.
That's
It
correct.
was
So,
originally, on your plans, you'll see a retaining wall on the left-hand side.
that's correct. And here's the, here's some revised copies of the plan. Obviously, that's doubled in size just for presentation purposes. But this, the building inspector in his review determined that the retaining wall meets the definition of a structure under the zoning bylaw. And there's definition of a structure in the side yard or the rear yard in the Wenham zoning regulations requires a variance for any structure, regardless of how tall or short the retaining wall might be. As I mentioned, there's a stone wall already along this corner boundary, but the stone wall is only about a foot or maybe 2 feet at the most high. Our wall is going to vary from about 2 feet to about 5 feet at its highest point, again, for the purpose of elevating the leaching field and pushing the storm water towards the rain garden. So that was the issue on the retaining wall, and the language regarding the retaining wall variance that we emailed to Margaret earlier today, I have here, and I'll read it briefly after I hand it out.
Thank you.
The statement says, "The petitioner, Howard Squires, proposes to voluntarily demolish the existing dwelling and construct a single-family dwelling with accessory apartment and two-car garages. In addition to the special permit requests, the petitioner seeks a variance from Section 5.1 of the Town of Wenham zoning bylaws, granting the petitioner permission to construct a retaining wall within the side yard setback." And I think it's within the rear yard also. "The hardships borne by the petitioner include the location of suitable soils for the new Title V compliant soil absorption system and depth of estimated seasonal high groundwater table. Test pits conducted on site on December 18th, 2019 indicate that the soils found in test pits 8 and 9, located in the southeast corner of the site, so that's a test pit here and here, were the most suitable soils for the new soil absorption system. Soil absorption system is another word for leaching field. The proposed SAS is approximately 12 feet from the southern property line and is not able to be moved north due to ledge found on the north side of test pit 10. That test pit is just beyond the leaching field there. Estimated seasonal high groundwater table was determined to be approximately 24 to 32 inches below grade. Per Title V, the bottom of the proposed soil absorption system in soils with a percolation rate of 12 minutes per inch is required to be 4 feet above the estimated seasonal high groundwater table. This requires that the bottom of the proposed SAS to be 2 feet above existing grade, and the proposed finished grade to be at least 4 feet above existing grade. Due to the amount of fill required to install the proposed SAS, a retaining wall will be constructed near the property line. We proposed an innovative septic technology, Presby Enviro septic system, to reduce the size of the SAS, which in turn reduced the impact the SAS had on grading adjacent to the property lines. In addition to retaining soil for the proposed SAS, the proposed retaining wall also directs stormwater runoff to the proposed rain garden. And there's the second page of that, the handout is the cross-section of the retaining wall that was included in the septic system design. I understand there's been several emails issued from town departments in response to Squires' application, and I understand that we have a favorable email in response from the building inspector, from the DPW, from the Board of Health, from the Conservation Commission, and the Fire Department. And I would also note that the Board of Health has approved the septic system design that's incorporated in our design plans here.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll have some questions. I'm not sure if this is directed to you or your colleague. The accessory apartment is one level only, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there any access to the second floor from the accessory apartment?
No. And I'll just give you some numbers on this too. The primary gross square footage of the total house It's 4,840 square feet. The accessory apartment takes up 993 square feet with the primary residence of 3,847 square feet. So we're at 26% of the overall size of the house for the accessory apartment.
How large are the garages?
Well, the garages, the accessory apartment garage, glad I ran all these square footages before I came here, is 755 square feet. The primary garage is 725 square feet. It's a big footprint, we realize that, but it's a relative, I wouldn't say modest-sized house, but it's not an overwhelming-sized house, below 5,000 square feet. The garages obviously add to the footprint of the house.
This is the first floor plan, and the in-law apartment is this area over here, and it's closed off from the main portion of the house by some doors here, and provides access to the garage here.
Does it connect to the basement?
There is a basement below both the primary residence and the accessory apartment. Basement access, however, is through the main house.
The basement, do the basements connect under, in the basement?
Are you gonna connect them or just leave them all open? Gonna leave them all
It's just gonna
open.
be one large
Yeah, I
open.
mean, it's gonna be one pour.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and whether there's any type of demising in that would just be a wood constructed wall if they wanted to do that, but the basements are not finished. Nor are the attic spaces above the garages.
Okay, but the concern just being that you got an unfinished basement down there, and if that ever gets finished,
That's,
then that
we
increases the
went over that with great
Yeah.
detail with that. The basements cannot be part of the accessory apartment, otherwise you're bumping up the square footage above your
And
threshold.
we might have to put language in the decision to that effect.
We usually do.
Yeah.
I
Regarding
have
the
a
basements.
question. So it looks like the garages are almost 30 feet deep. What else will be stored in there? That seems really large.
I think they're about 24 deep, actually.
24 feet.
3 feet wide.
Yeah, 30 feet.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because they face towards the side, yeah, so 24. So
Gotta watch this trap door here.
I'm just trying to think of my garage, that seems large. So, but only two cars will
Yeah,
fit
but
in.
typical two-car garage is 24 by 24.
24
so-
by 24, 24
And
by
this
24.
provides some extra room on the side to put your lawnmowers or trash barrels and things like that.
And again, the Squires are downsizing from their primary house. They're moving into less than 1,000 square foot residence. They're gonna have stuff, so as much room as we can give them for storage space in the garage and any other areas.
It'll get used.
Yep.
Let me open it up to public comment, just to keep things ordered. Any comments in favor? Okay. Any comments in opposition?
I have a lot of questions, which, he was talking to you,
Can you
but
come
we
to
couldn't
the,
see anything.
excuse
Oh.
me, can you come to the podium and
If you
state
could
your
announce and
name
come up to the podium.
And address, please?
They want you up there on the meeting. My next door neighbor on the other side, right?
Yes.
On my back fence, right, yeah.
I want to see if they're going to raise the grade.
Hi, name's Tony Cataldo, 2 Eden Road. Yeah, my concern, I'm at, that my backyard abuts his property. Now, my concern is how far from my property is his wall? How is it going to be slanted, or the property there, whatever? And how it's going to affect the water table?
So we've lost the retaining wall on Mr. Cataldo's side, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
So it would, as I understand, it would be even grade with your current lot. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know what you mean by even grade. Is he, because I got a stockade fencing over there. What's he gonna do, just put it up there so the fence falls over?
maybe we could have
Look at the plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so, so here's Mr. Cataldo's property here. We did our septic design, we had the wall, we no longer have that wall here. But,
Excuse me, Bob. There, so that the rest of the audience can see it.
Fine.
You can move that podium too if you want to pull that out.
Where do you want me to put this?
Yeah, just
Over
right
here?
over there.
All right, so Joe, we're gonna go back over here, I think.
Kind of get a sense of what's
All
going on.
right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
This over.
there. All right.
Can you get in there?
I talk it with my hands sometimes, though, so. Anyways, I'll try not to hit anybody.
So you're saying that
So,
this wall is no longer here?
that's correct, and so it wasn't gonna be that tall of a wall anyways. You can see we had a 99 and a 101.5 there, so it was only gonna be 2.5 feet tall at the most anyways. But we've graded this down a little more gradually so that the wall is not necessary. But here along this property line here, there's that fence you referred to. It's only 1 or 2 feet of grade change here. This is going to be lower than that, so we're not gonna be pushing any water to yours property. Once the water gets to here, it's gonna run out to the street. It's gonna go into our infiltration trench along here, and what doesn't make it here will make it out to the street, and then there's a catch basin here that's downhill at that point.
I still don't see it that well, you know, how, you say it's gonna be graded?
Right, so the elevation at this point is 99, right?
99?
99 as compared to 101 here, so it's about 2 feet lower here than it is here, and it's about 2 feet lower here than it is here right now. So this is a little bit lower than the edge of your property, and that water's gonna run out towards Topsfield Road.
So you're saying that it's 2 feet lower than mine, so the stockade fencing that I have here is only gonna have about 6 inches or whatever of,
There'll be a slope to the land on Mr. Squire's side of his property.
Away from your fence.
Right, so it'll slope down, it'll take about 4 or 5 feet to change 2 feet in elevation, and it'll leave your fence will remain where it is.
okay.
I think his concern is that we're not gonna do anything to undercut his fence or take away the lateral support
That's
by
right.
removing soil around it.
Right, and that's why we're gonna slope the grade gradually away from his fence. We're not gonna have an abrupt cut next to his fence that would potentially reduce its stability.
Okay, so this wall, there won't be any wall at all then?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions or statements in opposition? Yes, sir.
John Cataldo, I live in share the house with Tony. I'd like to, you've got a lot of nice things for the surface water, you handle that really well. I'm curious about the groundwater. Have you guys looked at the direction of groundwater flow during wet and dry season? How is that going to be affected? Which direction is it flowing in?
So, we have done test pits, again, throughout the property, and we've looked at the estimated seasonal high water table, which, you know, by looking at the staining in the soil, we can tell that. And the water moves in this direction away from your property and towards the lower grades over here in the southeastern portion of the site.
Okay, and I'm just curious, is that lot all fill or is it natural soil in there?
Mostly natural soil that we encountered.
Is it really?
Yes, and there was some shallow depths to ledge in a few spots here and there, you know, some,
When they excavated,
But,
when they tore down the house and excavated, I saw these huge boulders, was that granite? Was that fill
That
or?
was the foundation.
It was the
That's
foundation?
what they-
Okay.
that's what they did.
Stone foundation.
Yeah, they
that's
tried
right.
a gigantic.
Huge,
They had some big equipment under there. I don't know what people.
Okay.
okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'm Gordon Isaac. I reside at 120 Topsfield Road, so I'm right next to Howard. Hey, Howard, good to see you. Just on the other side.
Yeah.
So, Let me just ask this question. I'm not sure I understood, and this is directed to you, Mr. Burnett. In the area where you have the soil absorption system,
Yeah,
you said something about that pushing stormwater toward the rain garden.
that's correct.
What did you mean by that?
Okay, so what I was trying to describe is that the direction of flow on the top of the leaching field, direction of stormwater runoff is going to be in the direction of Topsfield Road. So water that lands in the ground will flow this way, and then it'll come this way, and it'll run down to the rain garden here for infiltration. It won't go over the wall, for example, towards your property, and that's what I was trying to describe here.
I see. Okay. Good, and the retaining wall there, as you say, between 2 feet and perhaps as high as 5 feet?
That's correct.
It's not how would you describe the retaining wall? Does it have a level edge to it, or is it
It'll be level.
varied, or what?
It'll be level at the top, but it'll be made of stone masonry construction.
Yep.
It has a cap on it.
It's got it, oh, I see.
Cap.
Way cool, yeah. I'm excited to see, kind of an innovative soil absorption system. I think that's pretty neat. Yeah. Thank you.
He does a great job.
All right, any other comments? Margaret?
Mr. Chairman, we received they returned our public hearing notice with a note on the bottom. And it says, Mother Patrice M. Markle and I have discussed this issue and have decided we wish it to be and remain a one-home lot. I'm not sure what their address is. It's signed Patricia, I believe, and I'm sorry, and Marilyn Markle Coopers is the daughter. Just wanted to read that into record.
They own property on Eaton Road.
Okay, they're on Eaton Road.
They are on Eaton Road. The house is, they're not living in it. Daughter lives in New Hampshire, and mother is staying with her, but Mrs. Markley is the one who owns that property on Separate Ranch.
That's on the other side of the street.
Right, they're not
Across the
abutters,
street.
they're-
Yeah,
The other side of Eaton?
That's
Or the
correct.
other side of the Eaton Loop?
the other side of Eaton. There's no mailbox. I went over there to say hi to the people. There's no mailbox here. There's kind of a little overgrown and stuff like that.
It's 2 Eaton Road across the street from me. I think it's 2 Eaton Road they're talking about.
No, I think
one.
the Cataldos live at 2 Eden Road, and they're on the opposite side of the street from there.
One?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Margaret.
That was the only abutter comment.
Yes, sir.
we had.
Just a comment, I live across the street. Everybody on Eaton Road, Topsy Road, has water problems. The corner house is pumping all the time, and just a general comment,
Right.
so everybody has water problems. You see pumps going, you see hoses coming out of cellars all along Eaton Road and Topsy Road, on that side of the street, just general comment.
I have seen that. All right. Any further comments, questions? All right. So what are we thinking?
So what are the enumeration of the variances we need to consider here? There's the retaining wall right on the property line.
Yep.
The size of the garages, is that another,
No, that's
No,
a
it's-
special permit.
that's just special permit issue?
Right.
Okay.
Special permit to have more than 3 cars in
Yeah.
the garage,
It-
two
it's
two-car
just the
garages, and a
wall.
special permit for the
That's just the
accessory
one
apartment.
variance, okay.
Yeah.
So the only variance issue is the
Mhm.
retaining wall.
Okay. Dana, what are you thinking?
So I think they've demonstrated the need for the retaining wall to direct water away.
I agree.
I think it makes sense, and for the soil absorption system. So I think that was demonstrated. As for the special permit, I have to ask, because we get a lot of these. You're a builder, will you be storing
Oh, yeah,
any
me and
commercial?
my wife, my daughter, and my 2 granddaughters.
Okay, so no commercial storage vehicle,
Oh, no,
of
no,
commercial
yeah.
vehicles, okay. I had to ask, we've
Yeah,
seen
I don't
that
even have a
before.
commercial.
Okay. Accessory apartment seems pretty straightforward.
meets
It
the
meets the requirements.
requirements.
They have all they're not requesting any variance from setbacks. It's conforming. So, no, I don't have any concerns.
I mean, architecturally, we put the garages in the back, so it has a residential appearance across the front. You know, so the farmer's porch, so even though it does have the accessory apartment, it has the full appearance of a single-family home.
Evan, any concerns, questions?
No concerns. No, I mean, it seems we have a fairly supportive neighborhood. Not a lot of issues to be dealt with, it seems, from the abutters. They meet the requirements for the special permit for a in-law apartment. I would just say, I mean, we're gonna put the same kind of restrictions. This isn't going to be
Right.
leased in the same way as the one we just dealt with. I wonder how you would feel about a condition that if the people living in the place change, that you have to come back to the board if you were to move out or
Absolutely,
something
no
like
problem.
that.
This is we only have one daughter.
Right,
one
no, I
child.
understand, but that if that living situation were to change, you come back to the board and then we
Exactly, yeah.
would
To
put
rent it
lease
out,
restrictions.
basically.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'd issue a new special permit is how that
Oh,
would
yeah.
work.
No, we're selling our house and my daughter's selling her
Mm-hmm.
house, that's why we're.
Understood, but you know, if things change and anything can happen, and we wanna make sure that, you know,
Yep.
we get to review it.
All right, and I guess I would ask for a motion to approve the variance, the special permit, subject to the condition that, you know, should the identity of the occupants change, you would come back to us for further authority to rent out one side or the other, keeping in mind one side has to be owner occupied, whatever we do.
And do you want to include this, a 6-month lease provision, that if it is?
I think we're not gonna include any lease provisions where it's family, and then we'll put in the provision that if that changes, they'll have to come back before the board.
Right.
Do we have such a motion?
So moved. A motion?
Seconded?
Since we're not putting anything on the lease provisions, do we wanna just stick in something for Airbnb? No?
We can put in a provision that just says no short-term rentals.
Right, that would be the only other thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a motion to approve the variance, the special permit, subject to the requirement that you come back to us should the identity of the occupants change, and no Airbnb or other short-term rentals,
I don't even know what that is. so.
absent further action.
Is that anything to do with the airport?
Yeah, trust me,
All right, all in favor?
he doesn't know.
Aye.
All right.
So that was for the 2 special permits and the variance.
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, what's the appeal,
Looking forward to living here too.
what's the appeal period?
Welcome, Tom.
What's the appeal period?
20
So-
days.
20 days, so you'll write the decision,
That's right.
and then 20 days from when you issue the decision.
We'll put it on our website. Once 20 days elapses, it'll.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, you know what? I try to get every tree that was like really dead, and the ones that were rough, and I put those 2 big ones in.
Slipping right through here.
Sorry, all these people. Your vote, the accessory apartment.
They make sense?
As property prices go up, I think we're gonna see more.
I think we have a pretty solid accessory apartment.
Your name and affiliation for the record?
Luna, L-U-N-A, Luna Design Group, the architect.
Who's the architect?
Dan.
Thank you.
No, it's the new.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, we do have a few more things on the agenda. You're all welcome to stay.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's administrative matters.
Okay, we are bylaw amendments.
Yeah, I looked at the.
All right, we still have a few things on the agenda. If you guys you're welcome to stay. Otherwise, if we could have the room, we can finish up the proceedings tonight.
Thank you again, folks.
Thank you. Welcome to town.
Have a good night.
Next item, I wanted to share with the board.
You gotta come over and help me.
Proposed zoning bylaw amendments. There's nothing this board has to do in reference to this, but this will be presented to the selectmen for submittal to the warrant for town meeting. Sorry, I'm just talking about the
Haven't had a chance to look. What are the highlights?
articles that the planning board adopted or voted on last night.
Substitute changes.
Okay.
You have a copy in your, basically, I think you may be aware of the recodification process that we've gone through for the zoning bylaws. Not just zoning bylaws, but all bylaws. The general bylaws and the zoning bylaws are being revised, but mostly just reformatted. So there's reformatting being done as well as some minor grammar and punctuation changes that the planning board had to adopt the zoning bylaw changes last night. And you have a copy of them in there. You're welcome to read through them.
Okay.
Nothing substantive, though.
No, I did. I
There was
went through
nothing
the red line
substantive.
version and I
Good.
didn't see anything.
Yeah. Mostly they're just updating references to reference correct departments, state departments' names have changed since we originally did our bylaw. They're changing those, making sure it says Director of Public Works in the right places.
Yep.
And there are a few commas and,
Did Tony receive a copy as well?
Tony has seen them, yes.
Okay. He may have, in his broader experience, catch something that's more impactful than,
Yeah.
I didn't think anything was really a
No,
great
and the
moment.
planning board did go through them very closely last night. They've gone through each one of these changes and have approved the ones that you see here. I just wanted to share that with you. They'll be on the warrant, I think they'll be on the warrant for town meeting. That's not determined yet, that's up to the selectmen, so, yeah. And, that was all I
One of
had.
the things I forgot to ask about. So is Maplewoods now, it's not gonna be one phase of construction?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That was that.
Okay.
The only other
Sorry,
item
there
is
is
the
some
minutes.
The minutes, which I did review, and there were some minor typos. So I'm just going through them quickly. I have a marked up version, but it's on my computer at home.
Do you have it with you? Do you wanna?
I'm going through it quickly now,
Oh,
because
okay.
I saved my
Oh, it's on
version on the computer.
Okay.
Okay, I can send it to you later.
Okay. So we'll
Yeah,
table
other
those
than
for now.
that,
You wanna table them? Or
I
do you
didn't
wanna-
have it, they were, like I said, they were minor.
There's nothing substantial.
Did you have the chance to review them?
I did, I was comfortable.
Okay, all right.
All right, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes as to be insubstantially modified by Dana's comments.
So moved.
Second,
Seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, so are we done?
Yeah,
I
I'm
believe we're
surprised.
done.
I was expecting this.
We're like 2 hours earlier than I thought we were gonna
The
make.
next meeting will be March, 18th, I believe we
Right.
decided.
March
correct?
26th.
March
Is it
26th.
26th? All right, March 26th, yes, 7:30, thank you.
And Margaret, how does it work? So with the reviewer, you'll work with Jeremy to get the list of items we wanted their input on? Is that how it works? And-
I have that list of items already, and I have the revised plans. I'll talk to the peer reviewer, and they'll give me an estimate, and then I'll contact Andrew with that.
Okay.
And
when will when will will you just send us the
yes,
report?
when
or
he
how
does, when the peer reviewer completes their report, we'll send it to you.
Okay.
And I don't imagine it'll take more than a couple of weeks
Okay.
for them to
Alright,
get
good.
that to us. Once I get funds in place and
Sure.
that works. So we can make that happen pretty quickly.
All right.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to adjourn the hearing?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you.
Thank you.